is not a religious symbol, that's a secular symbol. Well, of course it's not. I mean, of course it's a religious symbol. And this is, just another step down that path of the secularization of religious symbols. On the other hand, and I do not agree with this decision, and I'm not at all happy about it, but on the other hand, if in fact a cross is converted to a secular symbol, it then is stripped of its religious meaning. And I would think that people, in the religious community might be upset by that too.
I would certainly think so, because the cross to them is where their Savior was crucified.
It's a very powerful
religious symbol. And if you take that away from the cross, I would think that the religious people would have been on our side of this argument in saying that this is a religious symbol, and we want it to stay even though it's religious.
That's right, because it's a religious symbol and not in spite of.
I'm surprised that we haven't heard more from religious people as their symbols become secularized.
That's right.
And I don't understand why they aren't speaking up about that.
Well, and maybe they will. I don't know. I mean, I think that's part of the movement to, as they say, the Keep Christ in Christmas movement, which is one actually that personally I support, because Christmas is in fact a religious holiday.
Absolutely.
And I think it has been perverted into something else. If you want to have a, winter solstice gift-giving time, or end of the year gift-giving time, and whatever, that's a very nice tradition. But since Christmas is in fact a religious holiday, I actually, as a non-religious person, support the idea that it ought to remain a religious holiday. So I agree with you that I would think that the religious community might ultimately be unhappy with the secularization of their sacred symbols.
I would think that they would not be happy that Christmas has become a boon for retail
commercial interests. That's
that
right.
It's a time to go out and spend a lot of money.
And some of them are unhappy with that, and we'll see where that goes. But obviously, from a constitutional standpoint, the idea of taking what is clearly a sacred symbol and secularizing it, in my view, is not good law, but there it is.
Okay, well, I took you away from discussion of the current legislative session, and you indicated that there are a number of things maybe that haven't even come up yet in which ACLU is taking an interest. What else is happening in Baton Rouge?
Well, there's always so much. It's sometimes hard to keep track. We have a bill that we're advancing now that would form a study commission to look at racial profiling in Louisiana, which is a little bit off the subject for us because it's not really a religious-based issue, but it sort of is, because it's based on concepts of right and wrong, that you ought not to prejudge people based on what they look like. And 2 years ago, the ACLU did a study of racial profiling in Louisiana, and we found that there is an enormous pattern of traffic stops that are aimed at African Americans for no good reason.
Are you talking about state police officials, parish, local, or
all of the above? All of the above. Pulling over African American drivers, predominantly African American men, but not exclusively, in enormously disproportionate numbers for no reason. And it's a real problem. And if you ask any young African American man if they've ever been racially profiled, they laugh. They think the question is a joke because it's so obvious to them that they have been and will be. So we're asking the legislature to form a study commission to examine the problem and see what can be done about it.
Are you asking that through some state representative or?
Well, Cedric Richmond, Representative Richmond, has introduced the bill for us.
All right. Where is he from?
He's from New Orleans.
Okay.
He's from New Orleans. And it hasn't yet come up in committee. As far as I know, it's not yet scheduled.
What committee would that be heard in?
Transportation.
Oh, well.
I think it's transportation, and actually I could be wrong, but because it's about what happens on the roads.
Yes.
But I'm not even sure about that, and I know it's not set yet, but it's something that we have a very strong interest in because, of course, we're all about treating people equally.
Now, well, who's going to be opposed to that?
Oh, the law enforcement community is opposed to that. I met last year with the Sheriff's Association to see if they would support us, and they absolutely will not support it because they will consider it a burden on them. What they say is the current law provides that if a law enforcement entity, whether it's the Sheriff's Department or local police force or whatever, has a policy that says we won't racially profile, they don't have to keep track of whether they do or they don't. All they have to do is tell their officers, thou shalt not racially profile. Well, we know that that's not enough. They all, of course, have these policies, but we know that they profile anyway. And they may not even necessarily be aware that they're doing it. Our position is that law enforcement ought to want to keep track of what they're doing, because if they don't know whether they have a rogue officer who's violating policy. And if they don't know what that officer may be doing, they can't take action to stop it. So we think it's in the interest of good policing for them to know what their officers are doing, but they don't want to do it because they look at it as a burden. So they will be opposed to it.
All right. What else? What else is happening up in Baton Rouge?
Well, one thing that we're actually finding that we're having some success on this year that we haven't always is things related to criminal justice, because keeping people in jail costs more than letting them out of jail. And so when in past years there's been a movement away from allowing people to earn parole, to earn their way out with good behavior and that kind of thing. This year we're making more headway in that, because basically on a pure economic argument that you ought to let people earn their way out, because we're spending a lot of money keeping people in who ought maybe not to be in anymore, who maybe could be released and have productive lives.
Are you at all concerned with recidivism, with letting these people out early?
Well, they would have to demonstrate that they have earned the right to be released. We're not saying release people, who might continue to lead lives of crime. We're saying give people meaningful parole hearings, meaningful probation opportunities, so that if in fact they can be released into the general population, they ought to have the opportunity to do so, become productive citizens, tax paying rather than, living in jail at our expense for no good reason. So
now, are you saying that there is a bill to accomplish this?
Well, there are several on both sides. There are several bills that would allow meaningful opportunities for parole for various categories of inmates, and also those are the good ones that we support, and the ones that we oppose are the ones that would say essentially lock them up and throw away the key. And some of those are targeted particularly dangerously against youth. We're very concerned with the over-criminalization of young people, turning kids who commit relatively minor offenses into lifetime criminals by locking them up without giving them adequate opportunities for training to be turned around and set on the right path and then released. So we're having more luck with that this year, and it's purely an economic issue, but that's all right. That's okay, whatever works.
But many of these young people do not have the skills to have a productive economic life, and the only thing open to them is crime.
Well, and what we need is a system that will turn that around, that will provide them with education. If you have to incarcerate them, educate them, provide them with job skills, and give them a support system so that when they are released, they have the ability to lead a different kind of life.
And is there a bill there now that says provide these training facilities to these inmates? Or
there are a lot of bills that are looking for that in one form or another, providing support services, providing more meaningful educational services, to reform the juvenile justice system. I mean, another problem that we have is the increasing trend towards criminalizing young people for doing things that ought not to be criminal behavior. And I mean, for instance, now there's a bill that we're opposing on what's called cyberbullying, which would criminalize sending an electronic message intended to embarrass, harass, or intimidate.
Yes.
Now, I understand, and it's targeted at anybody under 17. So it's just so it's the idea of high school kids teasing each other and bullying each other, and I realize that bullying is a significant problem, and I realize that young people need to be taught not to harass and harm other people with their words. But when you criminalize the act of sending a message designed to embarrass someone, that can